Hello, Nevada County. Thanks so much for joining me tonight. We've got something a little bit different for you tonight. We're taking a look back at what we've done for surprising, looks like the last 5, 6 years now, which is quite awesome. There's a real history to what the Nevada County Tech Connection has done, how it started. And so to, start from the beginning and get the whole story, because I'm, big picture, a relatively recent arrival, we wanted to turn to founding director, Shavati Karki-Pearl, and really pleased to have her on. She has since found greener pastures as the public sector manager at Waste Management. And in a perfect example of how remote work and technology makes Nevada County home to a wide range of people, she has not left Grass Valley. So pleased to have her on tonight. Now,
Hi,
really,
David. Thanks for having me.
yeah. I mean, you're the one who gave me this gig, got me involved in this whole thing, and it's really nice to have you back on, kind of come full circle and look at, how things got going before I got on board. Now, I came on at a kind of a strange time. It was fall of 2019. We had some great speakers teed up. I believe my first TechTonic and your last was about fiber optic broadband, a topic we keep on revisiting.
Yeah,
Although every time it gets a little more positive and a little more cheerful.
yeah,
Uh, there actually is fiber optic broadband available in Nevada County now, for example,
yeah,
which is awesome.
which is
Um,
awesome. Yeah.
but things like that isn't really how this whole thing got going. It started with, completely unbeknownst to me, a workforce survey that you undertook
Mhm.
back in, that would be 2016.
Yeah, 2015, 2016.
So let's rewind to this. Nevada County's got the Economic Resource Council pre-existed all of this. There's been various attempts to look at workforce and talent. How did you get involved in the first place back then, and what did that survey look at?
Yeah, the origin story. So, back then, the Economic Resource Council had applied for and received a grant from the CDA, which was around a 500,000 grant to do an analysis of creating a digital media sort of hub over here. So it was a feasibility study. Of course, there were other organizations that were involved in a more vast and comprehensive study to see what are the strengths of this area, and looked at the history of digital media and worked on that. But my little role there is I got a contract to create to conduct a workforce survey to see what the next 5 years look like for job opportunities in the region. And when I say region, it's the greater Sacramento region, which goes all the way from Sacramento up to Truckee. And it's basically that 80 corridor with us as a little offshoot over there. So I surveyed around 50 companies, both within Nevada County and in the greater region. And the gist of that survey was really what the companies were looking for, what kind of jobs were going to be available, what kind of skills were lacking, what kind of education was available or lacking. And the bottom line was it was interesting, the outcome of the survey. The top five needs were, of course, software development, which included, web development, the full stack, and then also IT, which is networking. I think there still is a shortage of people who do networking, who have technical skills for networking and cybersecurity. But then it moved on to the skill of having somebody who has digital skills, who's a technical person and can easily learn any kind of digital media, but also is good at presenting and collaborating. So there's a lot of IT people out there, but apparently there's need for people who are in IT and are also good as a customer facing person, because there's a gap there. So that's a rare commodity. So they were looking at building those skills or finding those people. And then the next two skills were really, believe it or not, a positive growth mindset. People who are willing to, things are changing so rapidly that they're able to adapt and change and grow. So anyway, I mean, the short answer to your question was, what the survey was about. We saw what education was available and assessed that there was very little available in terms of, software development, IT, and stuff like that, especially in our area. Sierra College does offer online courses and had programs in Rockland, but nothing specifically here in Nevada County to support that.
So I don't think it's necessarily going to surprise anybody that those are hard positions to fill in the foothills. So you identified these needs, and I love this because it's just such a scientific approach. You didn't think, okay, we need tech jobs. You looked at what does the workforce need?
Right.
So the classic, you began with the observation, which my scientific mind loves.
Yeah.
So now you have, the situation where you've identified there's some significant overlap in all of those kind of subcategories, right? A lot of similar-minded people are going to feel at home potentially doing a whole bunch of those things.
Mm-hmm.
How did you find a way to teach those skills locally? Because you mentioned, Sierra College has classes in Rockland. This was, we're so used to now in 2022, online learning has got so ramped up.
Yeah.
But even hybrid asynchronous classes, that wasn't really happening too much down in Rockland in 2015, 2016, correct?
Yeah. It's amazing what a few years can, difference can make, especially with technology. There were some alarming findings along with that. One was that over 50% of the workforce that exists today were at that time only 5 to 8 years away from retirement age. The good news is people are working longer now, so they're not technically retiring, but that fear is always there as they get older that maybe they decide to leave the workforce. So the result of our findings was like, hey, if we're going to do a tech hub here and support technology and our digital media companies here, not only because there are digital media companies, the one additional finding was that there are about 40% or more jobs are considered middle-skilled jobs, and all of those require some sort of digital interface. So middle-skilled jobs are basically where you're working at an office, and there's a lot of small companies here where you will have the classic example of, say, an admin assistant, and he or she is not only doing administrative work, but they're managing your social media, they're creating flyers, they're, helping with events and setting up events, and doing all this requires technology. So it's not just those software engineers, but a lot of digital skills required. So the end of the survey, once they finished the feasibility program, the great thing about what they did at that time, the ERC, was not only did they provide a feasibility report, they also actually kicked off not with that money, because they couldn't use that, but with collaboration through the cities, through the local high school district. They supported us in the first year, and also the Cal Works program. And they were actually able to acquire a building at Mohawk, which you're aware of, which became the Tech Center, and set up what we call the Connected Communities Academy to start teaching some of these classes, to create and accelerate a program over there, and also as a hub which would house small startups. So that was a very exciting time. And of course, as part of the feasibility survey at that point, they had decided that AR/VR was the up and coming hottest technology out there, which is going to require a lot of workforce, very little education available on that, even now today. And to support that and to support the VR industry, because guess what? Nevada County is full of creative people, right? So it's the perfect merging of arts and technology. So they actually were able to kick off an accelerator program focused very specifically on AR/VR technology and get about 5 startup companies to come and join. And at the same time, we kicked off Connected Communities Academy, where we started teaching programs on coding, cybersecurity, UX, UI, I mean, you name it. We either had workshops or we had actual classes. And then simultaneously, we started talking a little bit more with the local companies and getting them engaged to ask about their ongoing needs. We wanted to make sure we're always informed by the companies and their needs in everything that we did. So then that was the start of the Connected Communities Academy, the Tech Hub, and, all the wonderful activities that came after.
Well, I think that's one of just such the great example of unintended consequences, right? You come into this as, okay, we need to fulfill some workplace holes. There's need for this and there's not anyone to provide it. And then you wind up creating a community center. And that wasn't, necessarily the, central motivation, but so many cool ideas came out of just, people chatting after those classes, people chatting before those classes. Honestly, knowing students chatting during those classes too. Now, you did a real nice job of kind of bringing us to that point of, okay, we've got the Tech Hub, there's a building, there's some people coming together, we've got some classes. Let's talk about how that more education focused came into the Tech Connection, which maintained that, but also had a whole number of things like more, weren't learning something, but where the social networking side was just as important as the classes. Things like TechTonic Tuesdays, various meetups, fun stuff like the Global Game Jam, where you're bringing people into the building and creating that community. So how did that kind of transition from okay, here we're teaching, we're getting folks ready for the workforce, to we're bringing the workforce together?
So it's interesting because a lot of this, as you mentioned, all these happens so organically. It's like, of course we helped plan it and grow the programs, but a lot of it happened very, very organically. So we had the Connected Communities Academy. Like I said, it was funded with the help of I'm sorry if you can hear my chicken in the background. We'll ignore her. So the CalWorks, the high school district, they helped with the Connected Communities Academy. We had a grant of a year, and we worked closely with the CalWorks program, and also went into their clients and taught them some digital media classes at what's now called Connecting Point. And at the same time, what happened is an opportunity came up for a grant with NORTEC, which is the Northern Rural Technical and Employment Consortium. I forget what it's called. The full acronym.
Northern, yeah,
Yeah,
it's long, it's unwieldy, but it stands for the
yeah.
Northern Rural Training and Employment Consortium.
Thank you.
I did not know that until you sent me a nice little form with that on there. I've just been saying NORTEC for years. It's the power of the
Fantastic.
acronym,
Yes.
Make
Now
sure
you
you
know
get
what it
it
means.
right.
Yeah, so they had a grant where they were creating in their regions, which we're one of their region, the next generation sector partnerships. And we were like, oh, we have a sector we're working with right here. We're working with the tech sector, and it's specifically digital media. So we applied for that grant, and we were, very fortunate to receive that grant, which basically funded these programs for the next, how many ever years it ran. Of course, ERC put in, saw the value of it, and they had their own funding mechanism to support it as well. So and it's really cool. The next generation tech sector partnership is where you basically are getting the sector, whichever sector you may be focused on, which in our case was technology, and their representatives together and doing a collaborative analysis of what the industry needs, what the sector needs in that area, and build programs around it. So we started doing a lot of gatherings where we brought in, invited companies, CEOs or CTOs or, tech representatives to come and have a conference. And not only did we do it with the companies, we realized there's a huge remote work / freelance workforce available in Nevada County too. So we did a separate series of meetups with groups of people that were either freelancers, technopreneurs starting their own thing with a couple of people, or they were just working remotely for companies like, Automatic and GitHub and Google and, different companies right here. And we brought them together and we talked about what their needs were. And as a result of that, we also had 3 very strong, what we called business champions. Everybody knows Jonathan Palmer from Autometrics, and we had Michael Anderson. He's our local broadband champion and IT person here. And we picked, we had the manufacturing / tech, we had the IT person, and then James Hipkin, who actually helped us launch our websites initially, was the more software web development side of person. And then we had some other, we had a group of people that were also representing a kind of a panel of advisors. And we actually set up regular meetings with them. We would meet pretty much, every other week and discuss how we were doing. They would help me lead a lot of these meetings too. So we sent invitations out. We had them do a lot of exercises and talk about the top 3 priorities. And of course, guess what came up at the top?
Yet more tech workers, I'm guessing.
Yes. So it wasn't, any technical assistance. It was like, we need people. We don't have people. So, and luckily for us at that time, we had already under the leadership of Stephanie Ortiz at the ERC, a talent development committee. So we basically embraced that and added it to NC Tech Connection, and it's was called the Tech Development Committee, basically. And we started doing a lot of different programming based on the priorities. So one was talent development, like how do we develop and attract talent? The other was how do businesses connect with each other so that they can, share best practices for any kind of technical assistance. And the third was basically networking for all these solopreneurs and gig workers and freelancers, or remote workers that lived in a community, to know that there is a vibrant community. Because one is they didn't know it themselves. The other is, if we want to attract other companies or attract people to come live here, they don't know it exists. Nobody knows it exists, right? And it's left on luck for them to find others like themselves. So it was basically, that's how we then, got these networking events going. And the great part was that a lot of people were already trying to do some small initiatives here and there. So what we did is survey of, we scoured the whole area and saw who's doing what, and we actually put it up on the website saying, hey, this guy's holding TechTonic Tuesdays, this guy's doing code and coffee meeting, and this person over here, Curious Forge, was little and still evolving, and Curious Forge is doing this stuff. And so we were able to then not only highlight what was already happening. Truckee was having mountain Mondays and some other events there. So not only were we able to highlight these events, we started supporting these events and collaborating with it, and eventually taking over some of these. So all our JavaScript and coding things, we was an individual who was doing his best, and then he's like, you you do it. TechTonic was started by a tech person who was here from the Bay Area, and he still goes back and forth. And he's like, yeah, you can co-opt it, just take it on, because they already had a following. They already had individuals who were on there. There were Slack channels with a lot of individuals, which we still have. And so we just brought it all under one umbrella, basically, is what we did, to support any and every activity that's going on in any which way that they felt comfortable, and then really amplifying their existence, really. And then we continued classes. So, Connected Communities Academy per se didn't need to exist as itself, because we were doing classes and workshops as well. So it just became one of the many things we were doing. And
the workshops were so cool because you were leveraging local talent. Like I remember when I first came on board, it was I forget exactly what it was called, but it was a WordPress workshop. I think just WordPress 101.
Yeah.
And I mean, that room was full. And you had just about everyone there, from the person trying to start their first website for the first time, to someone like really getting down to the nitty-gritty of troubleshooting. Okay, I tried to do this, it won't let me do it. Can you teach me how to do some pretty complicated, plugins and various things? So I really dug that whole approach of, there's a wealth of knowledge out in this community. It's, can we bring it under one roof and share it? And one of the coolest stories I got from you when we were planning this, and I really wanted to get on this, is intern parties that you mentioned, where and I'm not going to get too much further because I don't want to get it wrong, but just love to elaborate a little bit about how those folks got together and what that looked like.
It's interesting you mentioned about the local people teaching. So before we go on to the intern party, I just wanted to hit home on that it was through the generosity and willingness of a lot of local tech talent that contributed their time and effort to actually teach these classes. They were all people working either for themselves or in organizations, and even their organizations supported them doing this, to the point where some of them even waived their fees. Some of them provided scholarships for a student to attend. There's many stories I could go into, and it was just beautiful watching them contribute their time, money, and energy to teach these workshops. So going on to the Intern Connect. So again, one of the things was, okay, we are finding it hard to get like seasoned talent. So more and more companies understood that they needed to grow their own talent. And how do you do that is through internship programs. Now, some of these companies already have been doing internship programs for a while, like Grass Valley, the Grass Valley Group, Telestream, AJA Video, etc. Every summer they do recruiting at various colleges, they get interns. But then they found that these interns that come not always stay to continue with jobs, because younger people, they want to feel they have a community. They want to feel there's others like them. Sure, there might be like a couple of other people their age in their organization, but what's the job, I guess, culture like? If I get tired of this company, is there anywhere else for me to go, or then do I have to relocate again? So there was a very big shift in attitude with the businesses, where initially the businesses would not share information with each other, especially their talent, because they didn't want to lose talent to each other. But then they realized they were going to lose them anyway, right? You can't keep them closeted in a box and don't give them what they need in terms of a healthy lifestyle to thrive. So we started the Intern Connect events through the summer. We would have it one a week for 4 weeks, for 6 weeks, however long it was, or one every other week. And each company would host it either at their site or at a site like a bowling alley, or at the city, Nevada, at the Grass Valley Summer Fair or Nevada City Fair, or just our fairgrounds. And all the interns would come together. They would learn a little bit about the area. They would learn about each other, but it was a social. And we wanted them to know there's other peers. It's not just them, and it's not just this one company that exists here. There's many others, so they know that there is, job opportunities and a thriving culture available here. So it was really a good way for these companies to work together, and they would host it, at their own cost. We would do all the promotion. Tech Connection would do the invites, the promotion. And we invited everybody. We would send emails to all the tech companies in the area. It wasn't just for those 4 companies saying, do you have an intern? Does your intern want to meet other people? Here's a social. Send them over. So anybody could go and connect. So yeah, we had that for multiple years.
I just love that idea of breaking down those barriers and really showing them that there's a real community up in Nevada County, and that if they come there, they're not just sitting in their cubicle doing their 9 to 5, and then if they go out to eat, nothing but lumberjacks to talk to. There's other folks with similar life experiences walking that path.
Yeah.
Which it's just so powerful when you make that discovery of, oh, I'm not isolated.
Yep.
Yay.
Exactly.
And so kind of in that same theme, we've talked about how the Tech Hub got started, talked about how there's, there was a bunch of resident tenants, there were businesses in there, but let's talk a little bit more about what everyday life in that building was like. Let's say you're, a coder coming to work at Traitware. Let's say, you're some Sierra intern at Nevada County Media. you're not, again, you're not isolated. You're in a workspace with other people doing sometimes very different things. So I
Yeah,
just love if
yeah.
you have any favorite stories of like, you know, that sort of cross-pollination happening.
Yeah, I mean, uh, the whole reason it was called the Tech Hub is, like I mentioned earlier, there were, spots there for other companies, smaller companies to come and work out of there. So we had Traitware, we had the AR company. It slipped my mind's the name's slipping from my and then we had GSS, the anchor tenant downstairs. Nevada County Media moved there, and then we had a few freelancers who were working there. They were Eric Little was a tech attorney. We had somebody who was doing web designs and a business specifically on online real estate, and a few others that came and went. But it was a beautiful collaborative environment where whenever we hosted an event, for example, Nevada County Media built that beautiful green room where they had all the gear available, and we were able to also set up our VR gear over there, and we hosted a lot of events there where then we would record it also and make the recordings available for those who couldn't attend. We had individuals from the Traitware who actually started as students. They attended some of the classes first, and then they taught some of the classes. So not only did they upskill, but they also, what skills they were good at, they shared those skills, with us. We had the AR company there. There were two um principals who worked there, and they were awesome because they both had kids. They would collaborate with us at the STEM fair, for example, that's held by the Nevada County School District, and do demos for us. They would do AR VR demos. And then we had Eric Little, the lawyer, and he did some TechTonic events for us by giving advice to companies. He wrote some articles for us, and guess what? A whole bunch of tech companies hired him also because he was like the resident tech lawyer. They're few and far in between. He'd moved here from the Bay Area, and we had a lot of ongoing collaboration with each other during these events. We had an event which involved it was one of the science testing. Again, I'm sorry, I can't recall it, but it was a testing event where the kids could come and test for scholarship, etc. And at the end of that event, the folks from GSS came and they demonstrated some of their, gimbals and gears and how it worked and things like that to those students. We did a lot of things with students. We were also had some interns from Bitney Prep for a while, and I had them do a whole bunch of demos that summer. We had a lot of opportunities to do demos, and they did a lot of demos and work. One student was very into software, so he did some work with our database and software. And it was very cohesive, collaborative environment for sure, where everybody supported each other a lot.
It was just an awesome little magical space.
Yeah. We had an engineer from AJA who was into AR, and he set up our whole AR area, and he would have VR AR meetups. I don't know if you remember or if it was still going when you started. So that was fun. Anybody learning to teach themselves, or trying to teach themselves, then he would help them with their projects, and they would then share it with each other.
Now that whole sharing thing, I feel like that was just so key to what was going on there. It wasn't. I never felt competition there. It was always, oh, you're doing that, cool.
Exactly.
So kind of in line with that, thinking about all of of the awesome classes and community building things there. What class really stood out to you as like, this was cool, I'm so glad we were able to make this happen? And
there were so many. um, let's see. There was a company that was started by some local people who are now in Reno, and they're called Breadware. They did IoT stuff. So they brought their devices, and it made it easy for individuals who want to do any internet controlled, devices to practice and learn that. I think my fondest memory is the very first class we did on learning how to code, for VR, because it was so new and so exciting. And there was, a bunch of students, and we had, again, Alan, was the person who started the VR meetup was actually a student of that class.
cool.
He was interested, he wanted to learn, so he came and attended the class, and then next thing you know, he started a meetup. He's already a seasoned engineer of many, many years, but he was branching out to do AR VR stuff because that was his personal interest. And to think that you could provide a class on something that actually doesn't exist, because as technologies are accelerating, it's all about being self-taught, and it's going to be easier for the next generation because they're digital kids and they live on technology, and they just teach themselves stuff. But we're talking about the in-betweeners that are, trying to learn these. So that was really a cool class. And then I think the classes were great, but I think our ongoing meetups were where people got real value, because they got the value of getting to know each other, getting to get support on their projects, brainstorming, learning new stuff as they went. We had the code and coffee for a while, which then went into pure JavaScript for a while. And just the TechTonic Tuesdays, we had some awesome speakers who came and talked about topics all the way from financing to law to, just motivational stuff to very tech-oriented stuff. So, yeah.
Well, and one of my favorites that I'm going to stick the clip in here because it's just so cool, and it checks almost every box you just mentioned, was the Acme Robotics TechTonic Tuesday.
Oh, yeah.
And that's just one of those. I'd love to hear what your fond memories of Acme Robotics is, because that was before my time. But when I was prepping and watching old TechTonics, I'm like, wish I could have been there for that.
They're an awesome group, and they're still around. Obviously, it's a group that's mostly high school students, and it's really run by volunteer leaders who work at Telestream and different companies. And these students, basically, they build robots, and then they compete against other, these are the Lego. It's sponsored by Lego, and they have, like, for younger kids, they have the first Lego League and different programs. And so they're all about building robots for competition, and they have to do a certain number of tasks, like go there, pick up the ball, put the ball there, go over an obstacle, all that sort of stuff. And whether you're tech savvy or not, these are kids. If you join it, anybody can participate and learn. And they are a long-standing local robotic team that constantly competes and does really well. In fact, it was awesome. Just last year, I got to be a judge for one of these contests, and it was really fun to see how the judging is done. And it's not just about building the robot. It's all the way from how are you presenting your thoughts? How did you come about with the how did you divide labor in your group? How did you, so all skills from just logistical to management to presentation, like how did you present at the end? A small amount is about the technology, believe it or not. So it's building those key skills that they really needed. And I think everybody loved that TechTonic Tuesday event that we had, because not many people know. And they're always looking for volunteers and judges. So, yeah.
Now, I didn't want to take away from the momentum of our conversation to stick this video in, but I think it's just so cool what Acumen Robotics does. And I wanted to make sure everyone got a chance to see what happened when they came and spoke at TechTonic. Hope you enjoy this little clip.
So you guys ready to go?
Yep.
All right, so let's give you a demo now. So program. I mean Gilmore. Yeah.
A little bit.
And I think things like that were just such a cool way to address that need that was identified in that survey. Kind of draw that line straight through, right? There was, we need people with these skill sets, and these people are in the community. They're, maybe they're not connected with others. Maybe they're 12 and, in about 10 years, they're going to be absolutely crushing it.
Yeah, you support them now and tell them why they need to stay here.
Yeah, give them a reason to come back. Maybe like,
Exactly.
hey, there's a whole community here that once you polish your skills beyond what we can teach you, because realistically, at some point, a lot of these folks have to go and study. They could do it remotely. They could do it in person.
Yeah.
But it's good to get that 18-year-old out of the house for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Have them come
the
back.
college experience. Yeah.
Yeah. But the level of preparation that some kid that goes through Acumen Robotics has is pretty impressive.
It is. Yeah.
Now, we've covered an awful lot of ground here, and I don't want to take up too much more of your time. But I really wanted to kind of just have that through line where it's, you looked at what is the region need, right? Back in 2015, it's okay, we need tech jobs. And then it just snowballed, right? It's like first you're like, okay, we need to give people a little more instruction on certain topics.
Yeah.
You've got the classes.
Yeah.
And then you're at the class and you're looking around like, well, this is pretty cool. Folks are talking, they're networking, they're doing stuff. And I guess what kind of closing thoughts do you have on how, by addressing that need, you created this whole world? And it's just so cool and so awesome.
Yeah. I think it's really cool because it unearthed all the existing talent, the businesses that are out here. And it's good that this year ERC did the tour of Nevada County again, and they were able to highlight a whole bunch of these hidden gems that nobody knows about, And as long as we continue doing that and telling that story, it's very important for our, like you said, the upcoming workforce, for our kids to know that it exists over here, that there's a thriving, job market right here if they so want to stay here. And then just, education, I think, in technology right now, and not like a very specific tech skill, but just your digital skills are so very important because, and I used to say this often, that, it is a tech sector partnership, but technology is really not a sector anymore, because it's the thread that is the foundation of pretty much every industry now, somebody that's creating home crafted soaps in Nevada City can go online and sell it. And not only can they create a website, they can now create little reels or videos or go on TikTok and promote, their soaps. And they can do all kinds of things sitting here and sell to the world, provided they have the digital wherewithal to do that. So I think that is key. And of course, there's a lot of education now that, you don't necessarily need like a place where you go for a class. Everything's available online now, but really the need to just keep up with the technology as it's accelerating. I just find it funny, as a last note, one of the workforce items was, guess what? By 2020, it is predicted that about 40, because more and more people were hiring contractors, it was just worked better for the companies rather than hire employees, that 40% of tech workers would be either freelancers, contractors, or remote workers. I was like, really? Is that possible? And then, of course, the last 2 years really accelerated everything, and boom, there we are. Who knew? So yeah, just remote work. You need to be digitally savvy to work remotely from home. So
it's just, I think that's the takeaway. It's, gotta be able to connect people, and whether you're connecting them in person, digitally, remotely, your neighbor,
yeah,
their tech's going to be involved, but so are the people.
exactly. So, yeah. So
I think that's pretty much the closing thought. Can't have tech without the people, and the tech helps the people stay right there in Nevada County.
Yeah.
So,
The only other thing I would say, ERC is there, and it's a great resource for connections. I still get people who call me and say, hey, do you know anybody who blah, blah, blah? So because I got to know so much and really become a connector. But beyond me as an individual being a connector, and I love doing that even today, is the ERC is there, and it's a really good resource for connecting people to pretty much any resource, in the business world, tech world, or any. So use those resources and see what all they have to offer.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for your time today. I've been David Carroll with the Nevada County Tech Connection, chatting with founding director Shavati Karki-Pearl. We miss her. She's gone on to greener pastures with waste management, but she'll always have a place in our heart. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye.